Hello, students, and welcome to Scholar IAS, your one stop solution to UPSC preparation. I am Shubhangi Sharma, your faculty for history. And, students, this particular lecture is going to be a very important lecture. We are starting a new series in which I am going to be talking to you about some important topics pertaining to your post independence history period. And among that, the first topic that we are going to start as a part of this session is going to be the Nehruvian era. So let's begin, students. Now, students, the post-independence period is something that is going to be very, very important from your mains perspective, that is GS1. Now, although in our previous years, very less questions have been coming up from this particular time period, however, it is a part of your course and you have to prepare the important topics pertaining to your post-independence period. Having said that, students, the post-independence period, as you all know, starts from the day when India got its independence, that is 15th August 1947. And after that, students, the first Prime Minister of our country was Jawaharlal Nehru, under whom very important decisions pertaining to our economy, society, or polity were taken. Having said that, students, the first topic that we are going to deal in this series is going to be the Nehruvian era, and the time period for Jawaharlal Nehru's Prime Minister term is from 1947 to 1964. Now, students, as a part of this particular topic, we are going to discuss all these topics. This is a very huge topic because Nehru was involved in many, many things. And that is why the Nehruvian era is kind of very bulky. And that is why this particular lecture will be divided into many, many parts. Now, students, as a part of Nehruvian era, first of all, we are going to talk about the condition of India just after independence, wherein we are going to talk about the Indian Independence Act, the key points pertaining to this act. Then, students, we are going to talk about the integration of state. As you all know, India was divided into many, many small princely states after its independence. And that is why Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel particularly played a very important role in integrating all these states and making India a single union. Apart from the students, then we are going to talk about the first government after independence, wherein Nehru was elected as the Prime Minister of our country. And then, students, we are also going to talk about the partition of India that had happened, wherein India was divided into two countries, that is India and Pakistan. And during that time, there were certain important things that need to be noted, such as a boundary commission, which was put forward, which is named as Radcliffe Boundary Commission. That is something very important, and we are going to talk about it. Apart from that, students, as we all know, after the partition of India, there were communal riots all over the country. So that is another important point that we are going to discuss as a part of this particular lecture. Next, students, comes the important topic of assassination of Gandhi that had happened. So this is also going to be a part of your lecture. Apart from the students, then we are going to talk about the first general election in which Nehru was formally elected as the Prime Minister of our country. And after that starts his most important term, wherein we are going to talk about all the policies that had been taken up as a part of his Prime Minister term, in which we are going to talk about the developments under his leadership pertaining to political, social, economic, and foreign relations. Also, students, we are going to talk about the foreign policy that was adopted by Nehru, which also includes the important concepts of Panchsheel and non-alignment. Also, there was this concept pertaining to Nehru and his ideas pertaining to socialism. That is something that will also be incorporated as a part of Nehruvian era. Now, students, since this particular topic is very bulky, so we are going to take up only few parts in this particular lecture. This is a small lecture wherein I think probably we will be able to complete the first 4 points, that is till partition of India. So let's begin. Now, students, the post-independence period begins with the time when India got independence, which was based on an act known as the Indian Independence Act. So basically, students, this particular act was passed by the British Parliament on 5th July 1947, and this was based on the Mountbatten Plan. Herein, you must note that this act was getting the royal assent on July 18, 1947. However, it was implemented on August 15, 1947. तो आपको ये याद रखना है कि इंडियन इंडिपेंडेंस एक्ट कब इंप्लीमेंट हुई थी और इसको ब्रिटिश पार्लियामेंट ने पास किया था एंड इट वाज बेस्ड ऑन द माउंटबैटन प्लान. Now, students, we are going to talk about the important provisions that were a part of the Indian Independence Act 1947. Having said that, students, this particular act provided for the creation of two independent dominions, that is India and Pakistan, and this was to come into effect from August 15th, 1947. तो इंडिया और पाकिस्तान में इंडिया टूट चुका था, ये दो इंडिपेंडेंट डोमिनियंस बन गए थे और ये इफेक्ट में आ गया था 15 अगस्त 1947 से. इसके अलावा स्टूडेंट्स, ईच डोमिनियन वाज टू हैव अ गवर्नर जनरल टू बी रिस्पॉन्सिबल फॉर द इफेक्टिव ऑपरेशन ऑफ द एक्ट. यानी कि स्टूडेंट्स, क्योंकि ब्रिटिशर्स ने अब विड्रॉ कर लिया था, तो ये जो दोनों डोमिनियन बनी थी, इसमें इनका अपना चूज किया हुआ एक एक गवर्नर जनरल बनना था, जो कि इस एक्ट के सारे प्रोविजंस को ठीक से अपने अपने डोमिनियन में लागू करते. Apart from this, a new constitution was adopted by each dominion, wherein the governments of the two dominion were to be carried in accordance with the Government of India Act 1935. Now, students, this is a very important point. Sometimes it also comes as a direct statement-based question in your prelims examination, wherein you have to remember that before the general elections had taken place, our country was being governed on the policy that was based on the Government of India Act 1939. तो दोनों ही डोमिनियंस में जो कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन नई कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन अडॉप्ट हुई थी, उसके अलावा जो गवर्नमेंट चल रही थी वो कंप्लीटली गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया एक्ट 1935 के प्रोविजंस के बेसिस के ऊपर चल रही थी. Apart from the students, another important provision was that Pakistan became independent on August 14th, while India got its freedom on August 15th, 1947. Again, an important factual point wherein you must know that Pakistan got its independence one day prior to India. Now, as I've already told you, students, as a part of the provision of Indian Independence Act 1947, it was given that both of the dominions will have one Governor General. As a part of the students, in Pakistan, M.A. Jinnah became the first Governor General of Pakistan. However, in India, the Indians requested Lord Mountbatten to continue as the Governor General of India. That is, a Britisher was still being a Governor General of our country, whereas in Pakistan, Muhammad Ali Jinnah was decided to become as the first Governor General of Pakistan. Apart from the students, with respect to India, it will be important to note that on 15th August 1947, the British Imperial Raj ended in our country and independent India rose up. Here in students, a very important quote that you might have been hearing here and there is that Jawaharlal Nehru had famously quoted that at the stroke of the midnight hour, when the world sleeps, India will awaken to life and freedom. So this is an important quote. You can also use it as a part of your answers, and that is why I've highlighted this point here particularly. Apart from the students, Jawaharlal Nehru, as Prime Minister of India, hoisted the Indian national flag above the Lahori Gate of Red Fort in Delhi. So students, these were some of the important provisions with respect to the Indian Independence Act, जहां पे आप ये याद रखेंगे कि इंडिया और पाकिस्तान दो डोमिनियन बन गए थे. उसके अलावा दोनों की अपनी नई कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन बन गई थी. दोनों में एक एक गवर्नर जनरल होना था. पाकिस्तान में मोहम्मद अली जिन्ना फर्स्ट गवर्नर जनरल बने, लेकिन इंडिया में लॉर्ड माउंटबैटन ने ही कंटिन्यू किया गवर्नर जनरल रहने का. Okay, so these were some important points. Now, students, after the Indian Independence Act 1947, the biggest challenge that independent India had to face was many princely states that were a part of our country. Having said that, students, during 1946 to 1947, the process of integrating these states began. Now, Jawaharlal Nehru presided over a conference known as the All India States People Conference session, which had happened in Udaipur in 1945 and then again in Gwalior in 1947. Now, as a part of these conferences, students, he declared that the states that are refusing to join the Constituent Assembly would be treated as hostile. अब स्टूडेंट्स, ये जो पॉइंट है इसको आपको कैसे समझना है. बेसिकली इंडिया के अंदर अराउंड 560 प्लस प्रिंसली स्टेट्स थे जब हमारा इंडिपेंडेंस हुआ था. उस पॉइंट ऑफ टाइम के बाद में जब इंडियन इंडिपेंडेंस एक्ट 1947 आई, तो उसके अंदर एक प्रोविजन था दैट आइदर these princely states can join the dominion of Pakistan or they can join the dominion of India, or they also, if they want to, they can also remain independent. However, when this mammoth task of integrating the princely states came into the hands of Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, which we are just going to talk about, he followed a very iron policy wherein he decided that the states have to either join any of the dominion, they will not be allowed to remain independent. And because of this particular attitude, he was also given some titles such as Iron Man of India or Bismarck of India due to his contributions towards the integration of princely states. Having said that, students, now we are going to talk about the manner in which Vallabhbhai Patel integrated the princely states in our country. So in July 1947, Vallabhbhai Patel took the charge of the new States Department, and his chief aide in this was VP Menon, who appealed to the sense of patriotism among Indian princes and urged them to join the Indian Union on the basis of surrender of three subjects, that is defense, foreign affairs and communication. Apart from this, under Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, the incorporation of Indian states took place in two phases. तो हमने यहाँ पर देख लिया कि वल्लभ भाई पटेल ने स्टेट डिपार्टमेंट का इंचार्ज बन गए थे वो 1947 में. वीपी मेनन उनके चीफ एड थे और वो इंडियन प्रिंसेस में सेंस ऑफ पेट्रियोटिज्म को जगा रहे थे, जिससे कि वो आके इंडियन डोमिनियन इंडियन डोमिनियन को ज्वाइन कर ले बाय ट्रांसफरिंग थ्री सब्जेक्ट्स, दैट इज डिफेंस, फॉरेन अफेयर्स एंड कम्युनिकेशन. Now, students, we are going to talk about the two phases in which the integration of states happened as a part of the Indian Dominion. So, in the first phase, students, by August 15, 1947, all the states except Kashmir, Hyderabad and Junagadh had signed an instrument of accession with the Indian government, acknowledging central authority over defense, external affairs and communication. As a part of the second phase, students, the process of integration of states was done with neighboring provinces or into new units like the Kathiawad Union, Vindhya and Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan or Himachal Pradesh, along with the internal constitutional changes in states which for some years retained their old boundaries, such as Hyderabad, Mysore, Travancore and Kochi. And here in another important point to note will be that this entire phase of integrating all these independent states was accomplished in a small time span of just 1 year. यानी कि स्टूडेंट्स ये दो फेज अगर हम ध्यान से देखते हैं तो इसमें पहले फेज के अंदर ऑलमोस्ट सारे प्रिंसली स्टेट्स अपने आप ही इंडियन डोमिनियन को ज्वाइन करने आ गए थे, लेकिन कुछ एक्सेप्शन थे, दैट इज कश्मीर, हैदराबाद एंड जूनागढ़, जो भी कुछ समय के बाद में इंडियन डोमिनियन के अंदर आ गए थे. सेकेंड फेज जो था स्टूडेंट्स, जो सेकेंड फेज था उसके अंदर इंटीग्रेशन ऑफ स्टेट हुआ, जिसमें नेबरिंग प्रोविंसेस और नए यूनिट्स बने, जैसे कि काठियावाड़ यूनियन, विंध्या एंड मध्य प्रदेश, राजस्थान एटसेट्रा, और कुछ पुराने स्टेट्स थे जिन्होंने कुछ समय के लिए अपनी ओल्ड बाउंड्रीज को रिटेन रखा, जो कि आगे जाके चेंज हो गई थी, और इसके एग्जाम्पल्स थे हैदराबाद, मैसूर, त्रावणकोर, कोचीन एटसेट्रा. Okay, and the important point here to note is that this entire mammoth task was completed in a small time period, that is only 1 year. Apart from the students, the principal weight that was offered to all these princely states was a generous privy purse, wherein some princes were made governors and Raj Pramukhs in free India. Apart from the students, the unification of India was still incomplete without the French and Portuguese enclaves. अब स्टूडेंट्स यहाँ पे दो बहुत ही इंपॉर्टेंट पॉइंट्स हाईलाइट हुए हैं. इसके अंदर जो पहली बात है वो ये है कि जो प्रिंसली स्टेट्स थे वो इंडियन डोमिनियन को इसलिए ज्वाइन करने के लिए राजी हो गए थे क्योंकि उन्हें एक बेट दिया जा रहा था, दैट इज द जेनरस प्रीवी पर्स. सो बेसिकली स्टूडेंट्स, हियर इन द प्रीवी पर्स is something, it is a kind of a payment that was given to the princely states to lure them to join Indian Union, and this was something that was later removed under the prime ministership of Indira Gandhi. Apart from this, many titles were also given to the princes of our country, that is titles of governor or Raj Pramukh. So these the concept of privy purse here is important, and also the titles that were given to the princes. Apart from the students, as we all know, there were certain territories in our country that were also under the hands of French and Portuguese. And that is why the unification of such territories was also equally important in order to create India as a free independent country. As a part of the students, it will be important to note that the French themselves ceded Pondicherry and Chandernagore to India on 1st November 1954. On the other hand, Goa and Daman and Diu were taken from the Portuguese by means of military action on 19th December 1961. यानी कि जो फ्रेंच के पास टेरिटरीज थी, यानी कि पौंडीचेरी और चंदेरी नागौर, वो उन्होंने अपने आप ही दे दी थी 1954 में, और हमें पोर्चुगीज से गोवा और दमन एंड दीव मिलिट्री एक्शन के थ्रू वापस लेना पड़ा था इन 1961. इन सारे प्रोसेसेस के बाद में स्टूडेंट्स, आवर कंट्री वाज कंप्लीटली यूनिफाइड. तो स्टूडेंट्स, यहाँ तक हम इंडियन इंडिपेंडेंस एक्ट 1947 के इंपॉर्टेंट प्रोविजंस को समझ चुके हैं और इंटीग्रेशन ऑफ स्टेट्स, प्रिंसली स्टेट्स पर्टिकुलरली इंडियन डोमिनियन में कैसे हुआ उस कॉन्सेप्ट को समझ चुके हैं, और उसमें सरदार वल्लभ भाई पटेल का क्या रोल था उसको समझ चुके हैं. Now students, we are going to talk about the first government and the first council of ministers that was created in India after the independence. Now, as we have been constantly discussing, Jawaharlal Nehru took charge as the first prime minister of our country on 15th August 1947, and in this task he was assisted by 15 other members. Herein, students, important to note will be that Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel also became as the first deputy prime minister of our country till his death in December 1950. Apart from this, Lord Mountbatten and later C. Rajgopalachari served as Governor General till 26 January 1950. तो जब हम इंडियन इंडिपेंडेंस एक्ट 1947 की बात कर रहे थे तो हमने देखा था कि लॉर्ड माउंटबैटन को ही कहा गया था कि आप ही गवर्नर जनरल रहिए, और उनके बाद में सी राजगोपालाचारी रहे 1950 तक. ओके, एंड जवाहरलाल नेहरू डायरेक्ट इंडिया के प्राइम मिनिस्टर बने. Now students, when India became a republic, Rajendra Prasad was elected as its first president. तो स्टूडेंट्स, ये कुछ इंपॉर्टेंट पीपल है और इनकी क्या इंपॉर्टेंट पोजीशंस थी जो ये होल्ड कर रहे थे फर्स्ट काउंसिल ऑफ मिनिस्टर्स के अंडर, ये हमें याद रखनी है. उसके अलावा स्टूडेंट्स, जो अदर 15 मेंबर्स थे एज अ पार्ट ऑफ द फर्स्ट काउंसिल ऑफ मिनिस्टर्स इन इंडिपेंडेंट इंडिया इज समथिंग दैट इज गिवन इन दिस टैबुलर डेटा फॉर यू टू अंडरस्टैंड. हियर इन स्टूडेंट्स, यू हैव टू रिमेंबर द नेम ऑफ ऑल द इंपॉर्टेंट पीपल एंड द डिपार्टमेंट्स दैट दे वर होल्डिंग एज अ पार्ट ऑफ देयर ड्यूटीज. So Jawaharlal Nehru, as we have just discussed, was the prime minister. At the same time, students, he was also the minister of external affairs and Commonwealth relations, and he was also the minister of scientific research. Apart from this, Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, as we have just discussed, was the first deputy prime minister of independent India. Apart from this, he also held portfolios such as the minister of home affairs and states, wherein he was also a part of the integration of princely states, and also he was the minister of information and broadcasting. Maulana Abul Kalam Azad, students, was the Minister of Education. Then there was John Mathai, who was the Minister of Railways and Transport. This is C.H. Baba, not Homi Baba, who was the Minister of Commerce. And then students, there was Jairam Das Daulatram, who was the Minister of Food and Agriculture, etc. Apart from this, some important people whose portfolios should be remembered is B.R. Ambedkar, who was the Minister of Law. Herein, he belonged to the Scheduled Caste Federation, wherein he had resigned the same in 1951. Apart from the students, there were another important members whose names are given here and the portfolios are discussed as well. So you have to remember the names and the departments in which they were serving. Apart from the students, now we are going to talk about a very important key event in the history of our country, that is the Partition of India. Now students, to understand the Partition of India, let's go back in time. So the first official reference to Pakistan came in March 1947 when the Congress Working Committee resolution stated that Punjab and by implication Bengal must be partitioned if the country was divided. स्टूडेंट्स, जब हम फ्रीडम स्ट्रगल की बात करते हैं तो हमने एक पॉइंट ऑफ टाइम के बाद कॉन्स्टेंटली देखा था कि मोहम्मद अली जिन्ना के अंडर मुस्लिम लीग ने पाकिस्तान की डिमांड करना शुरू कर दिया था, और ये डिमांड धीरे धीरे कांग्रेस ने भी एक्सेप्ट करना शुरू कर दिया था, जिसका ऑफिशियल रेफरेंस हमें 1947 में मिलता है. Apart from the students, with the 3rd June plan, Congress accepted partition. Now, initially Congress was not happy with the idea of partition. However, there were certain reasons because of which Congress had to finally accept the concept of partition. Now, what were these reasons? The first reason was that Congress had accepted partition because they were unable to control the communal riots that were happening in our country. So students, there were terrible communal riots that were happening in our country. A lot of violence was happening, because of which the situation was absolutely uncontrollable, and that is why Congress had to accept the demand of Muslim League, that is partition. Apart from the students, the Indian Independence Act had laid the procedure for the resolution of three major problems, that is, the settlement of boundaries between the two nations, the division of apparatus and personnel on Indian civil services and some other services, and apart from this, the division of military assets and formation. तो जब ये तय हो ही गया था कि पाकिस्तान और इंडिया डिवाइड होंगे, पार्टीशन होगा, तो इंडियन इंडिपेंडेंस एक्ट में कुछ इंपॉर्टेंट प्रोविजंस डाले गए थे जिसमें कि पार्टीशन कैसे स्मूथली हो उसका प्लान दिया गया था, जिसमें सबसे इंपॉर्टेंट था कि दोनों कंट्रीज के बीच में बाउंड्रीज कैसे सेटल होंगी। तो उसके लिए एक पर्टिकुलर कमीशन लगी थी, दैट इज रैडक्लिफ कमीशन, जिसके बारे में हम नेक्स्ट स्लाइड में पढ़ेंगे। उसके अलावा स्टूडेंट्स, देयर वाज सपोज टू बी अ डिवीजन ऑफ apparatus and personnel of belonging to the Indian civil services। तो इन लोगों का कैसे डिवीजन होगा, इंपॉर्टेंट एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव पोस्ट होल्ड कर रहे लोगों का डिवीजन कैसे होगा, इसके बारे में प्रोविजंस दिए हुए थे इंडिपेंडेंस एक्ट में। एंड फाइनली मिलिट्री एसेट्स कैसे टूटेंगे दोनों कंट्रीज के बीच में, इसके भी प्रोविजंस इंडियन इंडिपेंडेंस एक्ट में हमको मिलते हैं। Now students, having said that, first we are going to talk about how the boundary issues were settled between the two dominions, that is India and Pakistan. Having said that, students, there were very hasty beginnings pertaining to the outline of creating a boundary. Herein, due to the extreme speed of events that were happening under the Mountbatten Plan, there came problems in arranging the details of partition and to some extent led to the Punjab massacre as well. What was this Punjab massacre? We are going to talk about it later. Now, in accordance with the partition plan, the respective legislative assemblies of Punjab and Bengal met in two sections. Students, यहाँ पर हम पंजाब और बंगाल की बार बार इसलिए बात कर रहे हैं क्योंकि इन दोनों के अंदर ही कुछ पार्ट्स ऐसे थे जो बहुत ज्यादा मुस्लिम मेजॉरिटी एरियाज थे, जो कि इंडिया से अलग होके टूट के अपना अलग कंट्री बनाना चाहते थे, दैट इज पाकिस्तान, एंड दैट इज व्हाई वी आर स्पेसिफिकली टॉकिंग अबाउट पंजाब एंड बंगाल. Now herein, one represented the Muslim majority districts and other of the rest of the province. Apart from this, they decided by simple majority in favor of the partition of the two provinces. यानी कि स्टूडेंट्स यहाँ पर जो दोनों स्टेट्स है जिसमें मुस्लिम मेजोरिटी वाले एरियाज थे, दैट इज पंजाब एंड बंगाल, उन दोनों की ही लेजिस्लेटिव असेंबलीज ने मीटिंग करी और दोनों ने ही डिसाइड किया कि दोनों प्रोविंसेस के अंदर पार्टीशन होना चाहिए, यानी कि दोनों दो अलग डोमिनियन में टूट जाने चाहिए. Apart from the students, now we are going to talk about the composition of the Radcliffe Commission and what were the limitations of this boundary commission. Now students, the British government had appointed the boundary commission under the chairmanship of Sir Cyril Radcliffe, and that is why it is also known as the Radcliffe Commission. Now this boundary commission consisted of two Muslim and two non-Muslim judges who worked under serious constraints. What were the constraints? The first constraint here itself was that Radcliffe had a very limited knowledge of our country and he was using outdated maps and census material which was required to draw the boundaries and decide disputed points within a period of just 6 weeks. Apart from this, the census of 1941 was the basis of decision and this census itself was very faulty. So students, not only Radcliffe was unable to understand the overall composition of our country due to his limited knowledge, at the same time, the material that he was using in order to create a boundary between both the dominions was outdated and faulty, because of which the creation of boundary became a very hasty affair. Apart from the students, the report of this boundary commission was read by 12th August, but Lord Mountbatten intentionally made it public after 15th August so that the responsibility of the consequences or the communal rights and its repercussions would not fall on the British. यानी कि students जाते जाते भी Britishers अपना एक गेम खेल के गए. गेम के अंदर ये बात थी कि उन्होंने जो ये रैडक्लिफ कमीशन बनाई थी, जो ऑलरेडी बहुत हिस्ट्रीली बनी थी, इसका काम भी बहुत जल्दी होना था और बहुत जल्दी इन्होंने डिसीजन दे दिया अपनी वेरी लिमिटेड नॉलेज के बेसिस पे. इसका जो डिसीजन था ये 12 अगस्त को ही आ गया था, बट इसको जान के माउंटबैटन ने 15 अगस्त को पब्लिक किया क्योंकि तब तक ब्रिटिश इंडिया को छोड़ चुके थे और बाउंड्री कमीशन की जो कंफ्यूजन्स क्रिएट होने वाली थी वो उनके ऊपर नहीं आती, इंडिया और पाकिस्तान को उससे खुद डील करना पड़ता. Now, because of a lot of confusion and not a proper boundary that was a part of the study that was given by the Radcliffe Commission, violent reactions unleashed in both the dominions, wherein a war of extermination was launched on both sides of the border of Punjab. Apart from this, the regions of Bengal, due to the presence of Gandhi and his efforts through fasts, experienced less violence in comparison to Punjab. तो स्टूडेंट्स जो वायलेंट रिएक्शंस थे वो पंजाब में ज्यादा देखने को मिले, जहां पे दोनों ही साइड में जो दोनों ही साइड टूटी थी बॉर्डर के अंदर, दोनों में ही बहुत ज्यादा प्रॉब्लम हो गई, रेफ्यूजीज बहुत ज्यादा परेशान हो गए, वायलेंट रिएक्शंस हो गए, कम्युनल टेंशन हो गए, हिंदू मुस्लिम एक दूसरे को मारने लगे। बंगाल के अंदर भी इस तरह के वायलेंट रिएक्शंस हो रहे थे, लेकिन वहां पे क्योंकि महात्मा गांधी प्रेजेंट थे तो उनकी प्रेजेंस की वजह से एक इम्पैक्ट रहा और वायलेंट क्लैशेस कंपैरेटिवली थोड़े कम हुए। अब स्टूडेंट्स अपार्ट फ्रॉम द बाउंड्री कमीशन जो नेक्स्ट इंपॉर्टेंट इशू था जो हमें पार्टीशन के बाद सॉल्व करना था वो था हाउ विल द रिसोर्सेज बी डिवाइडेड बिटवीन द न्यूली क्रिएटेड टू डोमिनियंस. So that is the part that we are going to now discuss. Now students, as a part of this, the first division was pertaining to the civil government. Now how it needs to be done? So basically a partition council was set up which was presided over by the governor generals, and it consisted of two representatives each of India and Pakistan. Herein students, all the civil servants were offered to give their option about the dominion they wanted to serve. Apart from this, for the personnel of the Indian civil service, a distinction was made between the Europeans and Indians, wherein the Indian members were to continue in service in their country of choice, that is India or Pakistan, on the existing scale of service. On the other hand, for the European officers, they could continue in service on their existing pay, leave, pension or get pension rights, etc. But if they wish to retire, they were entitled to special compensation and early retirement. So again, students, herein we can see that there is again this concept of racism that is being highlighted when division of resources is being done as a part of the Indian Independence Act, wherein special provisions have been given for the European officers of the Indian civil services who could either continue their service on the existing pay or they can get the pension rights, etc. And even if they wish to retire, they will get a handsome compensation. On the other hand, for the Indian members, no such provision was given. They were only given the option to either choose the country whichever they wanted to serve as a part of their service. Apart from the students, the next important division of resource was pertaining to the division of finances. Here in students, Pakistan wanted 1/4 share of the total cash balances of our previous country. Indian government, on the other hand, withheld the Pakistan's share of the sterling balance, which the British owed jointly to the two dominions. As a part of this, a debt incurred on the account of Indian contributions to the Second World War. तो यहाँ पे स्टूडेंट्स अगेन एक बहुत ही इंपॉर्टेंट फैक्चुअल पॉइंट आउट हो रहा है, वो ये है कि पाकिस्तान को 1/4 शेयर चाहिए था टोटल कैश बैलेंस का. हाउएवर इंडियन गवर्नमेंट ने पाकिस्तान का स्टर्लिंग बैलेंस विदहेल्ड कर लिया, जो कि ब्रिटिश गवर्नमेंट दोनों डोमिनियंस को जॉइंटली डेट ओ करती थी, और ये जो मनी था इट वाज पर्टेनिंग टू द डेट दैट वाज इनकर्ड बाय द ब्रिटिश गवर्नमेंट बिकॉज ऑफ द इंडियन कॉन्ट्रीब्यूशंस इन द सेकेंड वर्ल्ड वॉर. Now, what was the reason? So basically, the Indian government was not keen to release the money due to Pakistan, as it was angry with Pakistan for having attempted to seize Kashmir by force. यानी कि इंडिया ये स्टर्लिंग बैलेंस को इसलिए क्लियर नहीं कर रही थी क्योंकि पाकिस्तान बाय फोर्स कश्मीर को सीज करने की कोशिश कर रहा था. Okay. Apart from the students, Gandhi went on a fast and made the ending of the fast conditional on the transfer of the money owed to Pakistan. यानी कि इस पर्टिकुलर सिचुएशन में गांधी बीच में आए और उन्होंने एक फास्ट अनटू डेथ किया और इंडियन गवर्नमेंट को प्रेशराइज किया कि ये जो पैसा है ये पाकिस्तान को जल्द से जल्द रिलीज किया जाए, वरना मैं अपना फास्ट नहीं तोड़ूंगा. Apart from this, he succeeded in pressurizing the Congress leadership to decide to give more cash resource to Pakistan, and this particular step, on the other hand, students, irked many Hindu nationalists, particularly Nathuram Godse, and in fact, students, this particular step that was taken by Mahatma Gandhi is also considered the reason why he was assassinated later. Okay, now apart from the civil services personnel and the division of finances, now we are going to talk about the division that was done pertaining to the defense personnel and the equipment. Now students, as a part of this, a joint defense council which was headed by Auchinleck as its supreme commander was set up. So you have to remember that who was heading the defense council, that is Auchinleck. Now, this council decided that the Muslim majority units should be transferred to Pakistan and non-Muslim units to India. However, students, due to the serious differences between the two parties, the post of Supreme Commander was abolished. यानी कि स्टूडेंट्स यहाँ पे भी अगेन एक कंफ्यूजन की स्टेट हो गई, बहुत प्रॉब्लम्स होने लगी, क्योंकि जो दोनों पार्टीज थी उनके अंदर कोई भी डिसीजन नहीं लिया जा रहा था और दोनों में ही बहुत सीरियस डिफरेंसेस थे। काउंसिल ने ये डिसाइड किया था कि जो भी डिफेंस की यूनिट्स मुस्लिम मेजोरिटी की है वो पाकिस्तान को दे दो, और जो नॉन मुस्लिम यूनिट्स हैं वो इंडिया को दे दो। लेकिन दोनों ही पार्टीज के अंदर कोई भी रेजोल्यूशन नहीं बन पाया, and that is why this post of supreme commander itself was abolished, which was earlier headed by Auchinleck. Okay, so students, with this we have completed our discussion on this particular lecture. Let's take a quick recap of what we have done as a part of the Nehruvian era. So students, basically we had started by understanding the important points pertaining to the Indian Independence Act 1947, wherein we had understood that each of the dominion was to have a governor general with respect to the process of independence. Already we knew that there were two dominions that needed to be created, that is India and Pakistan. Apart from this, another important point that we had read is that both of these dominions were to be carried out in accordance with the Government of India Act 1935 until the new constitutions were adopted. Apart from the students, as a part of the provision wherein two governor generals for both the dominions were to be selected in India, Lord Mountbatten decided to continue as the Governor General. However, in Pakistan, Muhammad Ali Jinnah became the first Governor General. Apart from the students, as we all know, Jawaharlal Nehru, on the other hand, became the first Prime Minister of our country, and he hoisted the national flag above the Lahori Gate on Red Fort in Delhi after attaining independence. Next, students, we understood the very important concept of the integration of princely states, wherein I had told you that India had around 560 plus princely states during the time of independence, which needed to be incorporated as a part of the Indian Union. Now, the Indian Independence Act had given a provision wherein these princely states could either join Pakistan, or they could join India, or they could even remain independent. However, the person who was given the task of integrating the princely states, that is Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, did not pay heed to this particular provision and very strictly said that all the princely states need to either join Pakistan or India. As a part of this, students, the integration of Indian states was done in two phases, which we have discussed in detail, and this entire process was accomplished within just a year. Because of this particular contribution, Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel is considered as the Iron Man of India or Bismarck of India because of his contributions. Apart from the students, we had understood the concept of privy purse, which was kind of a bait that was given to all the princely states, wherein they were given heavy payments in order to join the Indian Union. Also, they were given certain posts as a part of Free India, such as governors and Raj Pramukh. Apart from the students, we had also understood that there were certain territories which were in the hands of other European powers, such as French and Portuguese of our country, which needed to be taken back. As a part of this, the French themselves gave us the territories which were a part of our dominion, that is Pondicherry and Chandel Nagore. However, from the Portuguese, we have to take Goa and Daman and Diu by military action. Apart from the students, then we had spoken about the first government after independence, wherein we had discussed at length the entire Council of Ministers with respect to independent India. This particular table will be very, very important for you guys. You have to remember the names of all the ministers and the departments which they were holding. Then, students, we had come to another concept, that is the partition of India, which had happened, wherein we had first understood a little bit background so as to when the demand of Pakistan was raised altogether, and what were the reasons that Congress had to accept this demand of partition, wherein earlier Congress was not in favor of accepting the partition. Then, students, we had understood that the Indian Independence Act, as a part of this partition, gave up certain provisions as a part of which India and Pakistan could be divided peacefully. However, students, as we progress in this particular chapter, we have seen that these provisions were not very helpful, but yet we were talking about them. Under that, the first important provision was pertaining to the creating a boundary between both the dominions, and this particular commission was known as the Radcliffe Boundary Commission because it was headed by a British person, that is Sir Cyril Radcliffe. Then students, we had also understood the limitations that were a part of this boundary commission, wherein Radcliffe was not very familiar with India, and at the same time he was using outdated documents, because of which the particular boundary that was created was not something with which both the dominions were happy. And as a result of this, violent reactions started to happen once the results of the boundary commission were announced, particularly in Punjab and also in Bengal to some extent. However, in Bengal, it was not very violent, because Gandhi was there and he tried to prevent the situation. Next, students, we had understood that after partition, how the resources were to be divided between both the dominions. As a part of this, we had understood that how the civil government had to be divided, wherein the Indian civil servants were given a choice to either join the Pakistan Dominion or the Indian Dominion. Here in students, an advantage was given to the European officers, wherein if they wanted to retire, they were given a special compensation, and that is not something which was given to the Indian civil servants. Apart from the students, another division was based on the basis of finances, wherein Pakistan wanted 1/4 share of the total cash balance. However, India withheld Pakistan's share of sterling balance, which was owed jointly by Britain to both of the dominions as a part of the debt that Britain had incurred on India's contribution to Second World War. Now, the reason for withholding this particular debt was that Pakistan was forcefully trying to seize Kashmir. As a result of this, Gandhi went on to a fast and to death and was successful in pressurizing Congress leadership to give more cash to Pakistan. And this in turn irked many Hindu nationalists and also became one of the many reasons why he was assassinated later. Finally, students, we had also spoken about the division of defense personnel and equipment, wherein a joint defense council was created, which was headed by Auchinleck. However, students, again, as a part of this defense council, both the parties, that is India and Pakistan, were not happy with the provisions that were provided as a part of this council, and hence no important decision could be made. And at the same time, the post of the supreme commander, that is Auchinleck's post, was abolished in the end. So students, with this, we have completed our discussion on some of the topics pertaining to Nehruvian era. We are going to discuss other topics in our upcoming lectures in next week. Students, if you like our content, please like, share and subscribe to our YouTube channel. And don't forget to press the bell icon so that you can be updated whenever a new important video pertaining to your UPSC examination is coming up. Students, I would also urge you to go to our Skholar IAS app and our website, wherein we are publishing amazing free content pertaining to your civil services examination preparation. Thank you so much. Have a nice day.